and welcome to TopX, where we count down the very best that YouTube has to offer. I'm your host Dan, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 serious news channels on YouTube. Today, we're helping you replace your cable and newspaper subscriptions with serious news channels. While some of these channels definitely stretch the definition of serious, we still had to exclude channels that put a heavier emphasis on comedy than they do on information. We ranked our picks based on a mix of subscriber numbers and views, votes from our users, personal preference, and impact on the YouTube community. Also, seeing that this is the news, personal politics and company politics were not factored into our choices. Number 10, BBC News.
As they've carved out their territory, so have the Islamic State.
Kicking off our list is no spring chicken in the world of broadcast news, the British Broadcasting Corporation. Now, when you've been around since 1923, you gotta keep up with the times in order to stay relevant. So, a YouTube contingent of this nearly 100-year-old brand was bound to pop up. On their YouTube channel, each clip is a self-contained story, rather than part of a larger broadcast. While this means that you have to watch each clip individually, it also means that you're not waiting around to find the clip that you're interested in. You're immediately launched into whatever you clicked on.
Unlike the Iraqis, they've managed to defend their territory without the help of US airstrikes.
That said, the only foreseeable downside to getting your news from BBC News on YouTube is that it doesn't serve as a total replacement for a devoted news website. The stories that you see on their channel are usually those that benefit from the visual medium, things with striking visuals or interviews.
Warum machen Sie das jetzt hier? Warum gehen Sie auf die Straße?
Geht den Scheißdreck an. So, können Sie mal ein bisschen weggehen hier?
Wie heißen Sie denn?
Und zurück nach Afrika.
As you might expect, the segments are delivered in a way that's slightly more discreet, a lot less sensationalized than their North American counterparts. It's definitely not dry or over-serious, but it's all delivered with an air of professionalism that isn't mirrored by some of their competitors. Number 9, Tomoe News. So, remember how I said that BBC was discreet and professional in their delivery? That may have seemed like an odd thing to mention, but it'll make a bit more sense when we get to this next entry. Enter Tomoe News.
Toronto police finally got their hands on Mayor Rob Ford's infamous crack video. They raided his dealer's house and cracked open his hard drive, revealing its juicy secrets.
Self-described as your source for viral news video, Tomoe News likes to straddle the fence between infotainment and actual news, and they do it in a way that's entirely unique. One of the problems that often faces news broadcasters is a lack of footage for the stories they're covering. Tomoe turns this dilemma into their central gimmick. They hire Taiwanese animators to animate footage for things they don't have footage of.
Police converged on the scene and a group of officers ordered the gunman to put his gun down. Instead, he fired at the officers.
As you can expect, the stories they cover are usually the ones that provide the most visually appealing animations. So don't expect in-depth coverage of the war against ISIS or the fight against Ebola here. But if you ever wanted to find out what would happen when the Mounties finally caught up with Rob Ford, they got you covered.
Ford and the police have been playing spy versus spy ever since news of the video surfaced. They followed Ford and his dealer using airplanes and spy cameras.
I know what you're thinking. How is this news? Well, admittedly, the Rob Ford stuff isn't, neither is their infamous Tiger Woods video. However, their more recent content really does cover current events, albeit with a marked preference for the more juicier, viral videos.
Shortly after midnight on November 15th, Lorenzo Gonzalez, 24, was intoxicated, driving his Volkswagen Jetta at a high rate of speed.
Number 8, ABC News. Okay, now, back to the serious stuff. Well, semi-serious, as ABC News has definitely put a lot of work into making their channel a bit more youthful and watchable than something like the BBC.
With troops ready to roll their tanks into these American cities here, and the governor of Missouri already declaring a state of emergency, all eyes are on the grand jury meeting in secret behind these windows.
That means their content is a mix of both hard and soft news, with hard news being more traditional news segments and soft news being interviews and montages of funny videos, for example.
And the haters gonna hate, 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 hate. And the players gonna play, 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 baby. I'm gonna shake, 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 shake it off.
Like BBC's channel, ABC's YouTube contingent serves as more of a supporting counterpart to their actual news broadcast and website. As such, many of their videos are actually clips from their standalone shows and serve as much as promotion as they do as content on their own. Anyone who's a fan of Good Morning America, Nightline, or 2020, or even of Diane Sawyer and Robin Roberts will feel right at home on ABC's channel.
It might seem crazy what I'm about to say.
Number 7, CNN.
Journalist Steven Sotloff, 31-year-old freelancer, has been executed by ISIS. They've just released a videotape.
Here, we have another juggernaut of American global news broadcast, the cable news network. Much like ABC, a lot of CNN's clips are taken directly from their news segments on cable TV. The plus side of watching CNN online is that you don't have to sit through a 24-hour broadcast to find the piece of news that you're interested in. You just find it and click on it and you watch it right away. What sets CNN apart from their contemporaries is the sheer volume of clips on their channel. Much like how their cable broadcast is on 24/7, so too is their YouTube channel being updated.
Just to reiterate, this was a terrible attack in a synagogue, like you say, a very violent, bloody attack.
This means that they get to cover a lot more topics than their competitors, and serve as the closest thing we've seen so far for a total replacement for traditional news outlets. Number 6, the New York Times. Another big name in Western journalism, all the news fit to print is apparently also fit to publish to YouTube. In fact, the slogan for their channel is, all the news fit to watch.
The number of persons that died, we can't forget them. We won't forget about Ebola.
While channels like CNN and ABC like to fill their channels with segments from their television broadcasts, stuff you'll find on the New York Times is often entirely original to YouTube, things that wouldn't work in print format. For example, their segment Anatomy of a Scene offers in-depth analysis of a specific scene from a recent Hollywood movie, with commentary from the director himself.
In terms of the acting, it was a question of, not because Gael knows the end of the story, there's a tendency to play that scene with that realization in your head.
On top of their standard recurring segments, which cover a variety of topics like relationships, tech, movies, etc., they distinguish their channel with something that's considered a bit unorthodox in the news scene: cooking segments.
Next, press down on the turkey breast to flatten the carcass. Now, arrange all the turkey parts in a large roasting pan.
These are all done with the same production value as the rest of their content and are notably quite seasonal. For instance, leading up to Thanksgiving, they had different segments on how to prepare a roast turkey, 2 different kinds of gravy, cranberry sauce, etc. Fun stuff.
And there we have it, the perfect roast turkey in about half the time.
Number 5, Associated Press. Next up is another big name that you've probably heard before, but unlike some of the other big names we've examined, you may not know what the Associated Press actually does. Well, you ever wonder where your local paper gets all of its news from? I mean, the Schenectady Chronicle can't send people to Nigeria, the Ukraine, and Syria every single day now, can they? The answer is the Associated Press, who are a non-profit organization based out of New York who compile and distribute news information from around the world to their various associates in the press. See what I did there? For those of you that believe that other news organizations put too much spin into their news content, the Associated Press may be exactly what you're looking for. Because they like to act as a source for other news outlets, they're also another good replacement for your cable news broadcast or newspaper.
Do you Google yourself? Do you Google your co-stars?
Yeah. I mean, I like to know what's going on.
Number 4, RT, or Russia Today.
President Obama has ordered a review of the United States policy towards dealing with hostage situations abroad.
Probably best to address the elephant in the room right away. RT, or Russia Today, is a Russian news channel run by the state. As such, they've been heavily criticized for pushing what some perceive to be a pro-Russian agenda.
I mean, you've long been aligned with the United States, but it now appears that Australia is trying to be even holier than the Pope. As far as I understand it, it was the Americans who asked Tony Abbott to tone down their anti-Russian rhetoric quite a bit.
However, those of you out there looking for a high-quality English news channel without a potential or even perceived American bias, this might be exactly what you're looking for. The other side of the coin, if you will.
These hostages are taken in places where the United States is actively aggressing against other nations, be it Iraq, be it Syria, Afghanistan, or what have you.
Despite being relatively new in terms of broadcast, RT has made huge strides online. They were the first YouTube news channel to hit over 1 billion views, and they were the #1 YouTube news channel in 2012. Number 3, Vice News. What once began as a humble, if explicit, free magazine based out of Montreal has now evolved into a massive force on the media landscape, and their YouTube presence is no exception. Vice has positioned their brand in two very specific ways. The first is as a youthful perspective. Their claim is that they're a news channel created by and for a connected generation.
A sobering report claims that more American kids are homeless today than ever before.
The second way they've positioned their brand is as an alternative to traditional news mediums. Their news capsule segment is even called Beyond the Headlines, to give you an example. Now, this sentiment carries over into almost all of their news, with a decidedly heavier focus on international stories that get little to no attention on the standard news channels.
Human Rights Watch has accused police in the Democratic Republic of the Congo of carrying out mass executions and abductions.
Because they have no channel on traditional television, Vice uses YouTube as their pillar, and their content often reflects the respect they give to YouTube as a medium.
Thank you, 1 million subscribers, Bango.
Number 2, Al Jazeera. We know what you're thinking, and let's stop you right there. No, Al Jazeera is actually not a terrorist organization, nor is it the media outlet for Hamas. Al Jazeera English is actually based out of England and Qatar, and its name non-threateningly translates into the island.
50 years from now, 1 in 3 people worldwide will live in slums, like these in the sprawling megacity of Manila.
Like Russia Today and Vice News, Al Jazeera positions itself as an alternative to Western media. However, while RT has a bias that's relatively easy to identify, and Vice positions itself as a sort of counterculture vibe, Al Jazeera defines itself by an air of professionalism that far surpasses pretty much every other entry on this list.
World leaders are in Australia trying to find a way to boost the global economy, but tension between the West and Russia isn't making things easy.
Aside from their professional, no-nonsense style, what makes Al Jazeera English so refreshing to watch is their scope. Watching the Western news, you might be led to believe that the world contains only Russia and the Ukraine, the United States, Ebola-infected Africa, and whatever parts of the Middle East are currently controlled by ISIS. Watching Al Jazeera English, you realize that the world is much, much bigger.
The Nigerian rebel group Boko Haram has taken over the town of Chibok in northern Borno state. That's the town where the group kidnapped more than 270 schoolgirls in April. Ahmed Idris is in Abuja.
Before we get to our number 1 choice for serious news on YouTube, here are a few honorable mentions. Number 1, the Young Turks. The Young Turks' central claim is thus: the real revolution is daring to be honest with people. We don't patronize our viewers or lie to them. We have real conversations and deliver the news honestly. One thing that distinguishes the content on the Young Turks channel is the made-for-web style. Although it's by no means low production value, it's definitely more off-the-cuff, less cut and dry than their broadcast counterparts.
An Uber executive has been caught making some pretty questionable statements about journalists. In fact, he made a statement over dinner with some pretty top people.
This style that they've adopted is definitely their greatest strength, as it allows their content to come off as a lot more frank. They swear, they make jokes, they get into heated discussions.
That democracy is the way to go.
First of all, John, you're obviously a traitor.
Exactly.
And I'd like
I'm
to
going to lose my MSNBC show, I'm sure.
Right.
While this may sound like a lack of professionalism on paper, in practice it comes off as authenticity. You don't feel like they're pulling punches to please their network, their sponsors, or even their government. A lot of the YouTube channels we examine here on TopX are supported by strong personalities, but this week that hasn't been the case. For this episode, the big names have all been brands, not people. So here we have the thing that pushes the Young Turks ahead of its peers and into the top spot. Its two hosts, Cenk Uygur and Anna Kasparian, along with their contributing commentators, breathe a lot of life into seemingly mundane topics without resorting to gimmicks or sensationalism.
Going after journalists is a terrible idea, so then we flip back to the Uber executive being totally wrong in his crowd of top people, as you put it.
It's these personalities and the strikingly honest style in which they deliver their news that have no doubt helped the Young Turks gain so much popularity, as well as the top spot on this countdown. That's it for this episode. We hope you found something that you like. Be sure to go to our website to vote for future episodes, and for more great top 10s every day, be sure to subscribe to WatchMojo.com.